I am going to officially begin today's program. I do want to welcome you all back from the weekend, and thank you for joining us today. And I want to welcome our guest presenter who, I don't know if it's a second presentation if you're a guest anymore. You might just have to sign on more often. But if you remember, Stuart Ashman presented in the middle of the summer, he presented about Cuba and the Jewish history there. As you learned from that presentation, Stuart himself has a long history and connection to Cuba. It was a really informative presentation. But today we're bringing him on to share about his work. That's the truth. This is something that he's been devoted to for the last number of years. It's the International Folk Art Market. He is the CEO of that. It is based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. And as we'll learn today, this is not limited to one region of the world. It's really all around the world. And that's why I really liked how you wrote that, Stuart, that we're going to travel with you through the pictures and through the art. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you for your presentation. I'm going to give you the floor. If anyone does have questions for Stuart, we'll try to wait till the end of the presentation. He can bring those slides back on or pictures. Of course, if it's more pressing, please do use the chat or unmute your mic.
Thank you, Rabbi, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you again. And I have prepared a small, brief PowerPoint presentation to tell you a little bit about the market, because one picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Right.
So let me see how I do this here. There we go. Did I get the name of the club right?
Well, hold on. You got to now share it. Go back to Zoom and just share screen and click you'll see the pop-up will select PowerPoint.
Okay. Where is it?
So
where is it?
Alt tab, maybe on the bottom will bring up the Zoom. You see that on your keyboard? If you use Alt, hold down Alt and then select tab, and you'll be able to change and switch between applications.
Oh, look at you.
And now hit the green button on the bottom, share screen, and select the PowerPoint. Perfect. Now we see it.
Okay.
We'll take the name. I'll take the name.
Okay. So here we are. Now, how do I change? Oh, there we are.
Perfect.
So the Folkar Market was started in 2004. You're going to be seeing pictures from the 2019, which was the 16th market. We couldn't do one this year, so these are the only pictures we have. We sold $3.1 million of folk art in 22 hours from 160 artists who came here from 52 countries. Since the beginning, we've had over 1,000 artists and raised over $34 million in sales. And the artists take home an average of 85% of the proceeds. We also pay $250,000 a year in gross receipts taxes. And the impact to the city of Santa Fe is $12 million a year. So obviously we're a big organization. And our programs include the summer market. We have a winter holiday market. We have a mentor to market education program, which is basically teaching indigenous artists or artists from indigenous communities how to be in the market. Then we have this thing called Folk Art Matters, is where we bring in experts about once a month to talk about particular areas about folk art, whether it's textiles or woodcraft or the environment as it relates to folk art and so on. And we have a program called Passport to Folk Art, which is basically we take people to the countries where these artists come from and they meet the artists and have great food and wonderful experiences. And we go to Cuba, Guatemala, Mexico, Oaxaca, Egypt, Brazil, and India so far, and Uzbekistan. And we have the folk art store. It says opening soon, but it's open now. So this is the entrance to the folk art market, and it's very festive and very decorated. This is one of the artists. He's an indigo dyer from West Africa. These are Maasai tribal members, and this is how they look when they come to the market. They wear these clothes. This is a women's cooperative that does beadwork, and that's the main source of income for them. This is a drum maker from Nigeria. And this is a painting by a Cuban artist, Carlos Caceres, and he paints things that have to do with Afro-Cuban religion. This is a group of women from Oman. And here again is the Maasai with some of her breastplate beadwork. This is a ceramicist from France, and you can see how detailed the edge he's working on there is with fresh clay. This is a jeweler from Israel. Silversmith, filigree work. And this is another piece by the same artist. Another, this is one of the chiefs, spiritual chiefs from the Maasai tribe. And this is more examples of their beadwork. And it's really intricate, even though it's very inexpensive. This is Carlos Caceres. He's the painter from Cuba that you just saw. And here he's in his studio working on one of the paintings. He's starting it there on the left side of the screen. And this is the painting finished. Here's another one. And notice that he always has this chair with the cane back, which is very typical of Cuban furniture. It's a beautiful skirt from Uzbekistan. And these are traditional pineapple ceramic pieces from Michoacan, Mexico. Here's some jewelry from Oman again. And here's the Omanis doing a little performance piece. I mean, it really is a festival. You know, if you can imagine 160 artists with their associates coming to the market in their native wear. I didn't know that they played bagpipes in Oman. And this is a Cuban folk art music group that come to the market. They've been here 4 times. This is an Uzbek weaver. And this is a Tuareg jewelry maker from Niger. And this is some of his work. And it's really gorgeous, silver and amber and onyx. This is a group of basket makers from the Amazon region. And this woman is a nice story, Jeanette Nakabala. She's a basket maker from Rwanda. And, you know, some years ago, there was a big strife between the Hutus and the Tutsis, the 2 tribal groups there. And she was left widowed with a group of children, her children, and had no way of feeding them. And she remembered that her grandmother used to make baskets, so she taught herself how to make the baskets and then got a group of women together to make the baskets with her. One of the women who she brought to the group was also a widow, and she was the widow of the man that killed Janet's husband. So the whole process was about reconciliation. Anyway, she came to the market with the baskets, and she went home with $22,000, which was probably more than she would have made it in her whole life. And she drilled a well and helped build a school. And then a few years later, the buyer from Macy's came. So now you can buy her stuff at Macy's. It's an amazing story. These are her beautiful, unique baskets. This is a program that we have for kids. So the kids, when they come in, they get a passport, and each artist has a sticker with a flag of their country. So the kids have to go booth by booth and identify on a map where that country is. And when they identify it, they get the flag in their passport. And here's the passport and a very happy kid. And this is, we had a dentist who came to the Folkar Market, and he went to West Africa and he delivered toothbrushes. So here's a picture of all the kids with their toothbrushes. And one of the things we do, the market usually opens on a Friday night, but on Thursday, we have a community celebration where all the artists come to the plaza in Santa Fe and introduce themselves to the community. And they carry the sign of the name of their country. And here's the entrance to the market. And, you know, we have 21,000 people that come to the market over the 22 hours. So it's very busy, very active. Here's what one of the tents looks like. This is an artist here from Peru on the right-hand side. And we have a lot of volunteers. Last year, we had 2,026 volunteers, and they come from all over the country just to volunteer. This is an artist from Iraq. And here's Nilda from Peru. She's a regular. And again, two more ladies from Oman, and they're blessing the market with incense. Here's a view of the market, of just a little piece of it, really. And the final piece is this beautiful lady from Laos. So here's more information. If you're interested in knowing more about the market, that's our website. You can volunteer, you can become a member, and we had the holiday market and virtual auction already. So you'll have to wait for the one in the spring.
So first of all, thank you. I know you went through some of those pictures, obviously with faster pace, so we can sort of also ask you questions.
Yes.
I'm just curious, before anyone asks questions, and of course, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask, or use the chat. That's how we would love it. Because Stuart has many answers. He's been doing this for a long time, and maybe you wanted him to go back to one of those pictures or speak more about a specific country or art that he just showed, and he can share his screen again if he does, if you have that question. In general, finding the artists, and even I'm assuming traveling with it, you showed the Cuban artist working in his studio. How do they bring in their wares, and does that mean you have to work with customs for them? I'm assuming they're less knowledgeable of the United States customs and immigration policies.
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Rabbi. And you know, every country is unique, actually. You know, art has a certain kind of exemption from customs. I mean, you do have to make a declaration, depending on which country it comes from. Most of the artists ship their work to us starting in May and June, and we have a big warehouse where we store it for them. And then when they arrive here Tuesday, and they arrive on a Monday, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, we have education classes, and then our crew delivers the stuff that they shipped to the market site on Thursday morning and puts it in their booth. So all they have to do is open the boxes and display their stuff.
Wow.
We do get a lot of help with visas. Excuse me, with visas from the congressional delegation, because those can be complicated sometimes, especially if they're, obscure countries like Sudan and places like that that are difficult to get entry into the United States. But really, it's mostly their responsibility. With Cuba, it's particularly difficult because there's no shipping services. So often we bring the stuff back on our trips. We roll up 200 paintings and bring them back in a tube. And art is exempt from the embargo, so you can bring it back as much art as you want from Cuba. And that's how we've been doing it. But it's complicated, and each case is different. There are some artists that have international connections. They market their textiles all over the world, so they have experience. But other artists who don't have that experience, it's more difficult. I mean, we've had people who have, I remember one lady who was in her 60s who had never been to the capital city of her own country. And the first time she went to the capital city was to get on a plane to come to Santa Fe.
Wow.
So somebody like that, you can imagine, doesn't have any idea what customs is all about.
So here are some questions in the chat.
Okay.
So first of all, do you provide transportation for the artists? I know you answered about setting up the booths already.
Yeah, we
what's,
don't.
I guess, included in the sense of when you...
We have a financial application for artists that are in need, and we raise money to bring 30 artists, 30 first-time artists. So the first year that they come, if they don't have the money to fly here, we pay for their flight and their hotel. And generally we feed them the whole time that they're here. So they really don't have any expenses other than shipping and the percentage of that we take for having them in the market. So they pay 10% back to the market. But these artists, if they make $10,000, that's more than they would have made in 5 years. So they're very happy to be able to come.
Right. That's a good point. Okay, so here is two questions. Let's start. First of all, do you have any weavers from, and I might be pronouncing this incorrectly, Ayacucho, Peru?
Yes, we have people from Ayacucho regularly, ceramicists and weavers. That picture I showed of that woman named Nilda, she's from there. And she's basically the matriarch of a group of textile artists from Ayacucho.
Nice. And then I guess how do you pick or choose the artists who will be at the market? And is there a max?
Well, there's a max only by the number of booths that we can accommodate in the location. And the location is a place called Milner Plaza on Museum Hill. So there are 4 museums up there and a botanical garden. And it's a beautiful site with gorgeous views. And we're trying to figure out how to be able to have more artists, but we also have a maximum number of people we can have at any one time there by fire laws. So, it's a complicated thing. In terms of how we select the artists, we issue an application and in sometime in the late spring for the following year. And so then in October, a group of experts called the selection committee come to Santa Fe, and they look at all the applications and rate them. And let's say that year in 2019, we had 650 applicants. And so they selected 250 of those based on their criteria. Then it goes to the placement committee, which is for people who are very familiar with the market and have been involved since the beginning, and they know how many we can accommodate. So they pare that 250 down to this year, they pared it down to 162 because that's all we had room for. And sometimes there's attrition, you know, when you have that many people, somebody got sick or something else happened in their life. So if we can accept, you know, a couple of percent more than we can accommodate because we know some will drop out. But that's really how we do it. And the selection committee has about a dozen people that are museum curators, professors, experts in particular areas. And each one is a spokesman for that area. So the textile expert will be the presenter on all the textile artists and give the rating. And then everybody votes on it.
Wow. So I know that you live in Santa Fe and the folk art market that we're speaking about specifically is in Santa Fe. Do you travel once they come in? Is there like mini markets that come up or everything is focused on Santa Fe itself?
Just in Santa Fe, we do have a smaller market that precedes the summer market here. It's in June and it's in Dallas. And some of those, 25 of those artists that come to the market opt to go to Dallas, which is a much smaller market, but they have the opportunity of selling at wholesale because it's at the Dallas Market Center, which is it's a 13-story building that is all designers and furniture makers and all of that. So people can go there and make wholesale sales if they have that capacity. But they also make retail sales, and they figure since they're already in the United States, they might as well spend an extra 10 days and see what else they can do. And so we have that market. We did have a smaller market in Arlington, Texas, and that didn't work out very well.
Are you worried though that they sell out in Dallas and won't have art for Santa Fe?
No, because usually they ship separately. Okay. They ship to Dallas and to Santa Fe. So and usually it's not the first year artist, so they know how it works. You know, the opening night is usually the biggest night of the market. You know, we sell tickets. We sell 1,500 tickets that night, and probably 35% of the sales happen that night.
Wow.
And then we have Saturday morning is the early birds. So it opens at 7:30 and you pay extra to come that early. And people start lining up at 5:30 in the morning to be the first ones in so they can buy the best stuff.
Wow. Now, do the artists speak English or like how does, I'm assuming most of them don't.
Some do, but every booth has an artist assistant, which is a volunteer, and some of them speak the language. Others don't, you know, I mean, if you're from Kyrgyzstan, there's not going to be a translator here. So if they don't speak any English, maybe somebody speaks a little Russian and they could help them with that. But, and we do have a team of translators, volunteer translators, but they can't cover every language, obviously. I mean, some countries in Africa have 80 languages. So, you know.
For everything else, there's Google.
That's right. Google Translate. So, yeah, I know we have English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Russian, Yiddish, if you have to.
Right.
We did have one of the beautiful things about the market is the camaraderie between the artists. We have Israeli artists, we have Palestinian artists. And one year, the Palestinian artist was late for the parade, and so he didn't get himself where he was supposed to be in line, and the Israeli said, "You come with me." So they marched in together.
Nice.
Yes.
So this is full time for you, and you said there's a lot of volunteers. How large is your paid staff, and how does your, I guess, year look in
Well,
regards?
we had 17 paid staff. Now we have 5. And this is a result of the COVID situation. You know, we had to cancel the market, so obviously we don't need a logistics person. We had a volunteer coordinator. We weren't going to use volunteers, so we laid all those people off. And so basically we're all scrambling. There's 5 of us now. We're planning a market in 2021, God willing, but it's not going to be the same size. And we're going to run it for 2 weekends in 2 different locations. And we're assuming that the state will be in a place where you could have gatherings of 100 people or less, which is part of the plan that the governor has laid out. This is called stage 4 of reopening. So if we're at stage 4 of reopening, we'll be able to have 6,200 visitors and 60 artists over 2 weekends. And that's the plan that we have in place right now for our budget.
Wow.
And it could go either way. If we could have more people, we'll amplify it. And if we can't have that, we'll have to condense it. And at the same time, we have online stuff going on.
Right.
We're going to try to launch more online business for the artists. You know, the mission is really to protect the cultural traditions of all these countries, while at the same time providing economic opportunities for these artists to survive and continue their craft. Because if they're not making any money off their craft, they're going to do something else, you know, and then the craft will be lost.
So can you talk to me about that for a second? Because I'm actually curious for myself. Let's say the online part is also fascinating, I think, for most of us who might not make it to Santa Fe, though I do know some people that do go to Santa Fe for the different summer art, I guess, opportunities. But what's a typical cost of art? Meaning, what's the range?
You could buy something for $5, and you could probably buy something for 5,000 or more. You know, there are carved little hearts, carved stone hearts from Haiti that are $5 and $10, and then there's gold jewelry from Ecuador and from Spain that can be, you know, $1,500 and up. So there's a whole range of prices. They're going to be a lot less expensive than if you went to a retail business to buy, because you're buying directly from the artist. So that helps with the pricing.
So your online store, if I can call it, that's going to be going live soon?
Yeah, it's live now. It's ifamonline.org.
IFAM online. I'm putting it into the chat for anyone who wants to do that. And let me just make sure we put that. All right, if anyone wants to check that out. And that's something that will keep updating. It's not like the auction that you just mentioned.
No, this is just it's a store just like if you were buying from Macy's or something like that. You know, the product is there, it's photographed, there's a price, you buy it, and in some cases the artist will ship it to you directly. In other cases, we ship it to you, depending on whether or not it's here in stock or in the artist studio.
All right, and then I guess one other question I'm curious about: what is the highest sale that you've, meaning for a piece of art that you've done?
That's a good question. Probably 15,000 for a Panamanian basket. And, you know, the artists, the average artist or the median sells $14,000 in the weekend. However, some artists sell $4,000 and other artists sell $60,000, depending on, you know, how popular they are and how expensive their product are. You know, we have a jeweler from Italy, and if he doesn't do $50,000, he feels like he hasn't done well, but he's never had that happen. He's done as well as 80,000.
Wow.
And you know, he's from Sardinia, and his family is, I mean, generations of gold filigree jewelers. There's another artist from Uzbekistan that is a knife maker, and his family, well, the forge that's in his studio was built by one of his ancestors in the 1600s. So, you know, it's in their blood, this kind of metal smithing and forging and knife making and so on. And, you know, he sells knives for $250, and he sells a lot of them.
So how long has the International Folk Art Market been in existence, and how long have you been working with it?
Well, it started in 2004, and, you know, I've been the CEO for 2 years, but I've been involved with the market since the outset, because when in 2003, I was the Secretary of Cultural Affairs for the state of New Mexico, and a group of people, 4 people, came to see me about this idea to have an international folk art market, and I thought it was a great thing for the state. And so I gave them the space to do it, and I gave them some office space, and then it developed. And then my wife was on the board for a number of years, which was very clever of them to put my wife on the board. And then I was a volunteer every year, mostly as an artist assistant in the Cuba booths, because my wife was running the Passport to Folk Art trips to Cuba, and, you know, meeting all these artists, and I would go on 1 or 2 of the trips and meet them. And because I speak Spanish, I was able to help them in their booths. And then, I don't know, it was serendipitous. The former director left, and they called me and asked me if I'd be interested. And I had thought about it many times before, but it wasn't the right time for me. After I left government, I was president of a museum in Los Angeles for 5 years, and I was ready to come back to Santa Fe, where we have our home. We've lived here for 40 years. It's hard to say that. Rabbi, you probably don't, not even 40 years old. So, and so here we are. Trying, you know, this COVID thing has really turned the world upside down, because we were really on a trajectory to continue expanding. So now we're just going to regroup and get it restarted again. But, you know, the enthusiasm for the artists from the communities that come to the market is so big. You know, these auctions that we have, we declare the value of an object, and people will pay 10 times the value just because they know it supports us and it supports the artists. And that's, you know, pretty wonderful, I think.
That's pretty amazing.
We
So
have
any other questions anyone has for Stuart? While people are thinking, if they have another questions, do you want to talk about the art behind you?
Sure. Over this shoulder is a ceramic candelabra from Mexico, and it's hard to see, but it's very intricate. It's almost like a wedding cake. It's got all these little flowers attached to it. And over my left shoulder is a power figure from the Congo. That's not in the market. It's just one piece that's my own. And behind my head, my yarmulke there, is a is a basket from Uzbekistan. Um, and so, you know, I'm sort of I'm not a collector, but I have a lot of tchotchkes in my house. And most of them fall in the category of folk art, because I'm kind of fascinated by that. I think somebody raised their hand.
Yeah.
Nitsky.
I have a question. Do you know Bruce Lawson?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, he was a fraternity brother of mine.
Oh, no kidding. What's your name?
Steve Myra,
How do you spell your last name?
Mirer. You know Marianne as well?
Oh, yes, of course. Really well.
She is a classmate of my wife in college as well. So we go back a long way.
Mhm. Yeah, well, Bruce was the head of the Museum Foundation here for a number of years.
Yes.
And way back in the early 90s, which is not so way back, I was director of the art museum here. And this is how I met Bruce. I had, we did an auction and an exhibit, which was, they asked artists to make bolo ties. And I made a bolo tie, and Bruce bought it. So that's how we met. But yeah, I've been to their house for dinner a bunch of times. They've traveled with my wife and I, so.
His whole house is a collection of folk art.
That's right, yeah. Well, I'll tell him that we met by Zoom.
Okay. Thank you.
Dan, you had a question?
Well, a couple of questions. One, when you pick the artist, did they pay their own way to get here from Uzbekistan or wherever?
Yes, unless it's their first year and they are in financial need, we sponsor 30 artists through funding that we get from donors. But you know, Uzbekistan is surprisingly a huge center for artisanry and craft. The biggest number of artists that we have come from India. The second biggest is Mexico, and the third is Uzbekistan. They have all these cooperatives there, and they figure out how to get here. You know, they pool their money and send one artist with the work of 6 or 7 artists.
Oh, okay. So when now when somebody repeats, you say you have a judging group each year. So somebody who goes back, let's say, to the 1700s, a family, are those people kind of in automatically, or do they have to compete each year?
No, every year you have to apply every year. And that's something we're looking at because we want to keep it fresh. We don't want the same artists every year. So we're sort of committed to having 40% of the artists be new to the market, for sure, which is disappointing to some of the artists. You know, they come for 5 years in a row. They have master status, really, and then they're told to sit out for a year or two. So, but, you know, the idea is to create economic sustainability for all these communities. And that's really, I mean, we're limited in how many people we can accommodate and how many customers we're going to have. At one point, the market thought about, you know, expanding to other cities, but there's something about Santa Fe that makes it magical. You know, we talked to New York about, they were interested, but, you know, one of the problems is, you know, we rent an entire motel for the artists for a period of 10 days. And they give us a great deal. And they give all the artists breakfast, and the vans come every morning and take them to the market site and so on. And so, you know, you're talking about 160 artists, and maybe multiply that times 3, because some of them bring their families, some of them bring their own assistants, etc. So where do you put 500 people at a discount rate in New York? You
Not
know,
in the city, but where we are, I'm in Woodstock.
Oh,
New York.
yeah.
So we have, you know, we have the Rhinebeck Crafts Fair each year. They
Right.
didn't have it this year, obviously, but in general, they have a large crafts fair each year. And so.
Yeah,
that-
well, in New York, in an area like that, it would work, but not New York City.
No.
And we talked to, the people that talked to us was the people from Battery Park. And, you know, that would be wonderful to be able to do it there. But it also takes several years before it develops into what it is today. You know, the first year, we had like 5,000 visitors and 60 artists. Now we have 25,000 visitors and 160 artists at a time. So, you know, and the first year, sales were just over $1 million. Now they're over $3 million. But it takes time for the word to get out. But, you know, we have 40% of our volunteer force comes from out of the city. We have people flying in from New York and San Francisco just to come be a volunteer for the weekend, which is amazing.
What's the admission charge to the?
It varies. You know, the normal ticket is $20. Sunday ticket is $15. Early bird ticket is $85. And the gala, the Friday night big deal, is $250. So it varies, you know. But you can come to the market on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock or Sunday for $15 and Saturday for $20. And teachers and first responders and military people get in for free. And so the kids under 16.
No senior discount, huh?
Yeah, we have a senior discount also.
I could probably make the senior.
So the next time will be, what weekends will it be in 2021?
It's July 7th to the 18th, those 2 weekends. So it'll open on a Wednesday night. It'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then it closes Monday and Tuesday, and then opens again on Wednesday with a different group of artists. And we're going to sell timed tickets. So you get a ticket for 90 minutes. It's like going to the movies. So you go and you have 90 minutes to shop 15 artists in one location. And then if you want to see the other location, it's another $20 and you have another 90 minutes. And if you want to go back.
Is that a norm? Without COVID, did you just have a flat admission price and you could spend as much time as possible?
Yes, it's a COVID related thing so that we can maximize the number of visitors. Because, you know, we have people that come and stay all day because there's food trucks, there's music. You know, you don't have to be shopping the whole time. There's a lot of social activity. On Saturday, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., we have 7,000 people there.
We do the Native American fair at the Heard Museum. And and we spend the day there. And we get there at 11 o'clock and leave it.
Yes, yeah, well, that's a parallel situation. You know, the other thing we did, speaking of, Lori has a question, but I just want to say this. So one thing that we did is we incorporated US born artists last year for the first time. And we had 3 Native Americans, which we didn't have before. I think Lori had a question.
That was my question, was whether you had any Native American artists at the fair.
Yeah, you know, we're originally, the marketing excluded United States born artists. And I convinced the board that if you want to be the international Folkar Market, you got to include Americans. And the reason they did that was basically that, you know, American artists, American born artists have a lot of opportunities. I mean, there's crafts fairs all over this country every weekend. So you don't really need to come to the international Folkar Market. So what we did is we let the local museums invite an artist. So they don't go through the normal selection process. They just get nominated by one of the museums on Museum Hill and we accept them. So last year we had 3 Native Americans. One was an Apache from Arizona. He was a violin maker from the San Carlos tribe. And then we had a Pueblo Indian from New Mexico and a Navajo from Arizona. And they all did very well. Elizabeth Many Goats from Arizona. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. And once you have your information that you're sharing about the upcoming event that you're planning for the summer, share it with us, and I'll make sure to get it out as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for your interest, and happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you.
Like your halo.
Thank you.